Hello everyone. You're watching a Microsoft QuickHit video designed to introduce Visual Studio users to an awesome new feature called CodeLens. My name is Alex McClure and I'm a Senior Application Development Specialist here at Microsoft. My job is to identify the most significant and promising application development teams in Southern California and help them partner with Microsoft to develop the highest quality applications as quickly as possible across a variety of platforms. The feature that I'm going to be showing you today is called CodeLens. CodeLens is a feature found within Visual Studio Ultimate that lets you see information about your code in line with your code. And here's an example of what I mean by that. There's a yellow arrow here next to a block of code that has some gray text above it. This gray text is CodeLens. You'll see here, for example, that there are 17 references to this block of code, that 15 out of 15 tests are passing. You can see the name Brian Keller, who is the last person who modified it, as well as the number of changes that this code has experienced. So why is this useful, and what challenges are we solving here? Well, imagine with me for a second that you are flying a fighter jet. In a fighter jet, pilots have what they call HUDs, or heads-up displays. And these heads-up displays provide them with information on their glass so that they don't have to take their eyes off of the objectives. CodeLens is a similar experience, but for developers. Without CodeLens, you have to look in several different places just to find the same pieces of information, and that takes time away from the development task at hand. So CodeLens solves those problems and answers questions like, where is my code being used and referenced? Is this code making my tests pass or fail? Who is the last person who modified it, and what is the change history for this code? So now that you've seen what CodeLens is, let's dive into a quick demonstration of that. I've spun up Visual Studio, and we're now looking at a block of code. And when I look at this code, for example, you can see the CodeLens information right above it. So you can see that for this block of code, there are two references, two places where this is being called. You can see the number of tests that are passing. You'll see that this is 0 out of 2, but there's a blue exclamation point here. I'm going to come back to that here in a little bit. You'll see that Brian Keller was the last person who modified this piece of code, but you can also see who the various authors were that modified it before he did. And you can also click on the 4 changes again to see the various changes that were made. If you click on any of these items, you can see, for example, a side-by-side comparison between what the code used to be and what it is now. So it's showing you that change set. I mentioned we would come back to this blue exclamation point and the 0 out of 2 tests passing. The reason you see that is because I haven't actually run any tests against this code yet. But when I do, by running all within the Test Explorer, and let's give this just a second, you'll see that for this block of code, 2 tests are applicable, and only one of them passed. If I click that, I can see which test passed and which test failed. I can double click on those tests to actually drill into the unit tests that are testing that piece of code. The other thing I want to mention here is that although you can run your tests from Test Explorer, you can also just run the tests that are testing this block of code by clicking the Run All button here as well. So that's CodeLens. I want to give you a few tips on how to get started with it. First, CodeLens is a feature found in Visual Studio Ultimate 2013 and higher. So if you don't have Ultimate, you may want to talk to your MSDN administrator about that. If you do have Ultimate though, CodeLens is turned on by default. However, if you're not seeing it for some reason, you can turn it on by going to Tools, Options, Text Editor, then All Languages. A quick tip, a faster way to do that is by pressing Control-Q for Quick Launch and then typing the word information, and that will give you what we call code information indicators, which is another word for CodeLens. Last but not least, it does require you to be running the latest version of Team Foundation Server in order to access some of the more advanced and newer code information indicators, such as the incoming changes, for example. If you want to learn more, I've provided a few links here that will take you to further deep dives and instructional videos. But of course, if there's anything that my team and I can do to help, we'd be happy to do so. If you would like training on CodeLens, or if you would like more information about how Visual Studio can help with your application development efforts, we'd be happy to help you. My email address is alex.mcclure@microsoft.com.